Good afternoon. My name is Rashik Ahmed, and this is my COTD final presentation on Paris. And since I already presented before, a lot of my information might be the same. I just added a few more slides. Um, so some general information and facts on Paris is that the population happens to be 2.16 million back in 2019, and the gross domestic product is 738 billion euros right now. Some fun facts are that Paris is one of the most visited cities in the world, and the Eiffel Tower was very unpopular when it was first built. There are about 40,000 restaurants in Paris, and the public, regarding the Louvre, the public can only view a part of the artworks there. So here's a graph that represents all the car sharing cars in Paris and the surrounding cities. So Paris has around 3.8 thousand car sharing cars at the time of the study, and Milan has about 2,000 car sharing cars. Um, yeah. So here's some demographics about on Paris. So the population of is 2.18 ish people within administrative city limits as of within its administrative city limits in January in 2017. So Paris is one of the most densely populated cities in the world, as you can see from 11 on the right. So yeah. So the best way here, let's get into the actual getting around of Paris. So walking is the greatest means of transportation because most people book hotels around the city. So that's like very important to like realize when you're if you're in Paris ever. But then the train is also very populated, and it's pretty affordable from the research that I've done. And you could purchase a single ticket for about like $2 about, and it's easier to purchase. That's actually if you plan to get around more, you could also purchase a book of like 10 tickets or more, or for just a day pass. Looking at the Paris map, so the map shows the central part of Paris, which is like the main part. It includes the principal tourist attractions, and the subway lines are designed from 1 to 14, um, and which basically lets you get just about anywhere, get from anywhere in the city. So the getting into ride sharing in Paris and major players. So the French ride sharing market is highly concentrated and is dominated by a few big companies like BlaBlaCar, Go, CarShare, and some others. So BlaBlaCar has launched the BlaBla Help new map-based application, and to support people with grocery shopping during COVID. Um, that's I guess how they sort of became a lot bigger than they were before, because during COVID, not really many people went out to go grocery shopping. And I remember I mentioned earlier that this was similar to Uber, but actually BlaBlaCar is a French online market place for carpooling. Its website and mobile apps connect drivers and passengers who are willing to travel together between cities. So they tend to only travel between cities, and they so car actually carpooling is the reason why it makes traveling from city to city a lot more affordable, and to share the cost of the journey. Some problems with ride sharing and regular taxis were are that so Uber and other ride hailing applications, like according to their taxi union, they believe that they promote unfair competition, given that Uber is a lot more renowned, and a lot more people would choose Uber over a regular taxi. Um, so speaking on the next bullet, there was a strike, and I'll get to that in the next slide. So, and Uber is well aware that its approach has not been, Paris has not been so fond of its approach in getting customers and everything. Um, and Uber, if the issue was actually cultural, then Uber would do well to figure out how to run its business in France on France's terms. If France is opposed to Uber joining the industry in actual Paris, um, in the Paris as a whole, excuse me. So getting into the conflict that Paris had with Uber, or the Paris taxi drivers had, that was mainly regarding privacy issues, and Uber drivers in France were very upset with European regulators for failing to resolve their issues against Uber. A group of 50 drivers staged a protest in front of the French Data Protection Authority's office, hoping to persuade the privacy regulator to address their concerns. And the drivers have been a lot more worried, only beyond their work conditions, to include their privacy concerns. So some implementation of Uber in New York City is that only an up-to-date smartphone is required for the service, and you can't use it if you have like a very old phone or something that cannot download Uber. Some surge pricing. Um, Surge pricing is when uh, Uber is used at a certain time or a certain place a lot more, and therefore they charge you a little bit more, depending on how many people are using it at that time. It's it's sort of the idea of supply and demand. So if a lot more people are using Uber at that specific time, then the price goes up. Um, and these prices, according to Uber, are intended to encourage more Uber drivers to leave the road because it's just gonna take a lot more time to get home. Um, but yeah, so the difference between that and the yellow cab is that getting a cab, uh, may be a weird experience because you might just pay a little bit more, maybe not. Also, you'd have to just like call them, so you might be nervous to call them, which is like sort of a human nature thing, like, you know. So also you never know how expensive the journey might be. Um, Although in Uber, you know how much you're paying when you're ordering it on your phone. And uh, anywhere in New York City, yellow cabs take the streets, and Uber could go from anywhere, but usually you see yellow cabs like in Manhattan or like city like areas. You don't really see it in the suburban areas. I have some questions. So I used one of my questions from before, and then I added one from before. I said, "Do you think Uber should comply with France and how the tax service runs?" And second is, "Do you feel surge pricing is justified, or is it another way of Uber just to increase their revenue?" Here's my works cited, and thank you.